at you or look at the camera?
Yeah, look at the camera. Benji.
It's already going, so you can trim it.
Okay,
whatever.
That's fine. You're going to help me edit it. So this is Benji Rideout. He's one of our anesthesiologists here and like one of my faves. Well, he is my favorite. Let's just be honest. So we're going to be talking today about upward mobility, and I'll give you that definition and everything during the course of the class. But I just wanted Benji to share his story about where he was as a child to where he is now as an anesthesiologist, and kind of talk about just a little bit about those things.
So I grew up here in Salt Lake City, grew up in Sandy City. I came from a big family, have 7 kids. I guess you don't really realize how hard it was to have that many kids until you have your own and you're paying for everything. But we had 7 kids in our family, and my dad worked really hard. I grew up in a part of Sandy that had a lot of very wealthy neighbors around us, but we lived there before it was a wealthy place. My dad drove a dump truck his whole life. Our neighbors would ask us not to park the dump truck in the driveway because it just didn't fit with their lifestyle. My dad was super obliging, I guess. He would just always move it. But my dad would work. He'd leave before the sun came up, and he would stay out late at night and would just work really hard. And he showed me the value of hard work. But there were times my dad he would do anything he could to make money for us. And so he sold landscaping rocks. That's why he had the dump truck. He was in real estate, but when I was growing up, the real estate market really crashed, and so that's why I started driving a dump truck. And he did whatever he could. But he taught me how to just work hard. As I grew up, my mom was a school teacher, and so she taught me the importance of studying hard. I was the first male on the Rideout side to graduate from college, including my dad. My dad never went to college or never finished college, so that was a good accomplishment there, I guess.
And where did you go to college, Benji?
Oh, thanks. So I went to BYU.
I won't hold that against you.
When I was raised up, my dad played basketball for the University of Utah for a year, and then my dad went on an LDS mission, and when he got back, the spot wasn't there for him, and so then he went and just started working. But because my dad was really into athletics, he got us into athletics, and he got us into tennis, and so. We didn't have a lot of money for private lessons, and so my dad, who didn't know anything about tennis, would take us kids out whenever he was home. He would drag us to the courts, and we would play tennis. I remember when I was younger, if the phone rang at my friend's house, I knew it was my dad, and I'd be pissed off because I know he'd be dragging me home to go play tennis. But I bring that up because my dad had 5 boys and 2 girls, and 4 of his sons played tennis in college. And tennis is a very expensive sport. It's not like playing football or basketball. Tennis is you have to pay for every tournament, and tournaments are all year long. And we didn't have a ton of money, but my dad just put in a lot of time, and he taught us that if you just worked really hard, you could get there. So that applied in tennis, and I ended up playing for BYU, and then I got my education there because of that.
So did you have a scholarship then?
I did. I had to earn it. Yeah, I went down. I was recruited from BYU in Utah, but because of Title IX, there's not many scholarships for tennis because Title IX, all the scholarships on male sports get sucked up by football and basketball. And so there's only like 4 scholarships for the University of Utah team. There's only 4 scholarships for BYU team. And so they get split up, and so it was very difficult to earn a scholarship, but I walked on. They gave me the ability to walk on, and after a year, I came home from my mission. Then I earned my scholarship and went for it. So I got taught early. I think the greatest lesson I got taught from not having the same ability financially when I was younger that other kids had, because we had to work so hard, is that you just buckle down and you take what you can get and work hard, and that got me through college, and then from there went to medical school in Kansas City and worked really hard there, and then went to a residency in St. Louis for anesthesia, and had a great experience out there. And then I was able to come and meet Wendy at Riverton Hospital.
His life forever changed, right?
Yeah.
So how would you say like your life as a child is different than it is as an adult? Because like your kids, so think about what you do for your kids and how you were raised. Like, do you think there's a difference?
Well, I tell my kids that I had to walk uphill every direction, just like every other parent does. But it's definitely different because my kids don't have to want like we did. There was a time when I remember we didn't have food in our house when we were younger, and I remember our neighbors bringing us food because we were in a really financial tough time, and my kids have never had to experience that. And so it's been great on the aspect that I've been able to provide a great life for my kids because of where I've gotten. But sometimes I feel bad that and I remind them about how they should be grateful about the comfort that they're able to live in. And it's I'll tell you, it's difficult. I think as a parent, as hard as the struggle is when you have no money, man, there are a lot of great lessons for everyone to learn. Some people just don't realize how much they can achieve when their back is against the wall, and I think that's one aspect that's really hard for me to instill in my kids in the life. And I've got a great wife, and we try not to spoil our kids, but just simply for the fact that that they've got a comfortable life. It's hard to not think that you spoil them.
But they work hard too, and so do you, Benji. So your dad worked a lot of hours, manual labor, but how many hours a week do you work?
Well, yeah. So my dad truly did instill in me the value of hard work and just getting it done. And so, I think the average anesthesiologist probably works 35 or 40 hours a week, somewhere in there. And I think I work. I'm scheduled to work about 60 hours a week, and sometimes 80 hours a week, just because I wear a lot of hats, and it's a balance. I try to make sure that I'm still there for my kids, and my kids play tennis just like I did, and even though I'm working a lot of hours, I'm still able to be on the tennis court with them probably 2 hours a day, somewhere in there when I'm not working 24 hours. So I do. I work hard because my dad taught me how to work hard, and my hope is that, and I think my kids see how hard I work, and they too see that example, and hopefully that they will continue to work hard, because nothing's given to you in life, and I think that I remind my kids that a lot, that nothing's easy, and when you buckle down and push yourself, it's amazing what you can achieve. I think, and I tell this to my kids, I think we as humans feel there's limits to what we can do, but I just think the limits are put on you by yourself, not really what you can achieve. I think you can break through those limits if you just buckle down and work hard.
Would you have chosen any other path? Like, have you always wanted to be a doctor?
Every time I work a weekend or a holiday, I wish I picked a different path. I think the grass.
You work with Wendy.
Well, no, working with the nurses here have been fantastic, but I say this all the time. Anything that takes you away from what you really want to do is difficult, and my biggest drive is to be with my kids, as I'm sure every parent is. But I would do anything to be with my kids every day. But at the same time, we have bills to pay, and life goes on. So would I pick something else? I think about it all the time, because I have to work I'm scheduled to work 2 weekends every month, the way it is right now, because I have a lot of responsibility in the jobs that I do for anesthesia, and I work quite a few holidays. And but I see some of my neighbors that have done very well, and they don't have to work weekends and holidays. And so, yeah, man, I think about a different path. But I love what I do. I love helping people. I love. I work at the trauma center, and I do liver transplant surgeries, and I really love that because those people are on the brink of losing their life, and I have had a lot of training, and I get a lot of fulfillment in helping them at those very critical times. And so that aspect would be hard to give up if I changed jobs. But at the same time, the hardest thing for me is to balance how much I love doing that and how much that takes me away from my other love, which is being with my kids. With my kids. And so, but it's a balance, and we all have to find that balance and what works for us.
Awesome. Do you feel like and you've experienced different socioeconomical classes, like being in different parts of the country too as well, so going in other areas, like do you feel like growing up in Utah gave you an advantage to the course that you were on, like if you had grown up in another state, like in the South or in the East Coast, like?
No, that's a great question. I think that it's hard because I grew up with my dad and my mom, and they both worked their fannies off. And my mom was at school every day, and she taught, and my dad was gone working, and then he would come home and work us out. So I think the environment I grew up in, I could have been in Alaska, I could have been in China, and if I had the parents that I had that taught me the value of hard work, I just think, me personally, I don't think it would have changed. Now, if I had different parents and I was living in Mississippi or in St. Louis, then it would have been different. I think the environment. But bloom where you're planted. My dad told me that all the time. He said, it doesn't matter where you are. You go and you just learn how to work. And so, if I really, whether it was growing up in Utah or California or Singapore, just having the example of my parents, I think, was the greatest things to help me learn the value of work. So.
That's awesome. I don't think I have any other questions. I think
good?
that was perfect. Yes.